Do you want a British indie film that has a little bit of prestige, a little bit of frequency, a little bit of Pet Cemetery in it? Of course you do. Let's talk Repeat. Hey everyone, this is David Stark from Watch Your Pass. I'm ready to talk to you about Repeat, which is a new British indie film that came to theaters and on demand on November 19th, 2021. It is surprisingly good. It actually, exceeded my expectations. I didn't really have any because I don't watch trailers or read about movies before, but it was surprisingly good. My hot take is it is much better than I expected. I really liked the main character, and I thought it had a smart use of effects on an indie budget, so it kind of punches above its weight. And overall, it's an interesting story and kind of an engaging film. So that being said, I'm going to talk to you a little about the film, a few things I liked and a few things I didn't like. And there will be spoilers because I'm going to be talking about aspects of the film that I didn't love, which involved the story. So if you don't want to know anything about the movie, and there is a kind of a shock twist at the end, there's a big surprise, and also the film kind of is a long searching movie. So I would recommend you don't know anything about it, go watch it and then come back and listen to me. But if you don't care about that, if you don't care about spoilers, or if you just kind of want to find out the mystery of Repeat, then let's keep going. So in Repeat, you have Ryan, who is a cognitive psychologist he's kind of obsessed with creating this device to talk to dead relatives. And you find out pretty early on why, because his daughter, Sam, just kind of disappeared one day and they never found her body. They don't know what happened to her. And so he is kind of obsessively trying to create this device so he can talk to her and figure out what happened and figure out what happened and maybe find her body or find out who was responsible. And it becomes an obsession for him, as you would expect. If you had a daughter missing, I'm pretty sure you would do everything you could to figure out what happened. And so he is working on this device, but then, because he is in a university setting, he has to go out and demonstrate it and test it and tweak it. And so this device allows the user to speak with a dead relative for a limited amount of time. It kind of fluctuates in the movie as he kind of tweaks it, but it's like 3 minutes, 4 minutes, depending on how much power he's giving it. And so it allows people to kind of have a brief moment with their dead loved one. And so he's hoping to use this to figure out what happened to his daughter. And so that leads to all sorts of problems, as you'd expect when you're trying to mess with the dead. And that's not just kind of like your supernatural types of problems. There's also kind of relationship problems because he is obsessed with this and it's hurting his relationship. And there's also professional problems because he is doing some shady stuff to try to make this a reality. So it leads to a whole lot of drama, a little bit of horror, and mostly sci-fi, because this is mostly a sci-fi film, although there's a little sprinkling of horror throughout. So things I liked about this movie. The first is Tom England, who is kind of the main star. He plays Ryan. I really liked him. His character, you spend the most time with him. He kind of you follow his journey, so you spend a lot of time with him. And I really liked him. He was a charismatic character. I liked his, kind of overzealous father. And although the film is kind of billed as like a sci-fi horror film, it really becomes a drama as you kind of follow his grief as he's trying obsessively to find his daughter. And I thought that Tom England did a really fantastic job with that, just kind of showing how far he would go to try to make this a reality. And also, his character is sympathetic and you're rooting for him despite some of the bad decisions he makes. I mean, there are some things that he does. He kind of steals from the university. He emotionally separates from a lot of people to try and really focus on this work. And he is kind of a jerk occasionally as he's trying to kind of make this project a reality. But you're still rooting for him despite his flaws because he is just such a compelling character. And Tom England's performance is just so good. Second thing I liked about this film, the effects. And this is an interesting one because I think the film does a smart job with the effects. Sometimes an indie film will try to do too much and it becomes apparent that the film was held back by the budget. They couldn't do the kind of the effects that they wanted, so they did something else that just doesn't look right. I think this film does a great job doing just enough to make the central premise compelling and like help you follow along with what's happening, but it doesn't look awkward. I mean, the film kind of focuses most of its effects budget on little touches. So the machine has this like ring that's wrapped in, I assume, copper or some sort of metal. And when the machine boots up to try to locate, the dead relative, the ring starts to glow, and so there's like flashes of light, and then the ring itself is glowing. But that's mostly all. And then I guess there's a little bit like a little wind effect sometimes, but that's mostly all. They don't try to do too much. I think it's really smart because it lets you kind of suspend your disbelief and just let kind of the acting and the overall story shine through. And it doesn't really rely on the effects, it just uses those to then tell its story. And I also really liked how it used kind of old computer hardware to make this machine. He puts the DNA samples in like I think an old hard drive tray essentially, which I really liked. And then it has like some old computer like booping and beeping sounds to show the analysis of it, and that made me smile. I liked again, it's a smart use of this kind of older computer technology to make it look like a high-tech device, but it also gives it this sense that this is kind of cobbled together. This is not a polished product. This is something that is evolving. And so overall, it's really tough to create an indie sci-fi film because you have to make some sort of technology. And I think this film does a really good job of doing that. So the last thing I liked is the very slow buildup. I mean, the film takes a while to get going, and I really loved it. Like you get an introduction to the characters and the machine itself and the technology, and you get to see it in action a few times. And overall, it just takes a while to get going. And I really liked how it kind of trickle fed little aspects about his daughter's appearance and his relationship with his wife. It really builds the story slowly, so you get a nice sense of the characters and the predicament and kind of everything going on. And then eventually it does kind of spiral towards the end, but you have this really nice long buildup before that. Things I didn't love as much about the film. The first, I guess this is not a major one, but the name itself, Repeat, it doesn't really seem to capture what this film is about. Like Repeat, Repeat makes it seem more like a Groundhog Day type scenario, and the film is more of like I don't know what a better name would be. Maybe like the Ghost Phone or the Ghost Voice or Death Phone. I don't know, something like that would seem to be more in line with the film. Oh, the repeat aspect does kind of make itself clear at the end. I mean, I guess you could see a couple things like he is kind of repeating the day in his head when his daughter disappeared to try to figure out what happened. And then there's also an aspect of him, and spoilers. There's going to be spoilers here. There's also the aspect of him kind of going back in time to relive that day, and then eventually, I think in the end, it's implied he's going to go back again. So that could be the repeat aspect of it. But I think to me, I didn't until the very end. It didn't really gel with what the name was. And I thought that maybe a more maybe something that's more key to the device and what it is supposed to be able to do would have made more sense. But again, it's very minor. The film is still very good. I really liked it. The second thing I didn't love as much is some of the later aspects of Tom's character. I mean, Tom is trying to find his daughter. He is obsessed with this quest. He goes to some extremes to try to find her. But in the end, when he does finally locate her and begin talking to her, I was a little turned off by what he did, because he basically only talked to her, and then eventually when he kind of pulls her through this portal or whatever that his machine creates, into his into the present, he does it only by himself, and his wife is just as broken up about it. And the fact that he like doesn't let her interact with the machine, and doesn't even like let her see the daughter when he pulls daughter through. I mean, that to me that felt a little selfish. And his character, I didn't really get selfish from his character, although I guess maybe that is a way to show it. But it just, I didn't love that aspect, because I think they were both going through a lot of grief. They were both kind of going through something, and so when he was finally able to contact his daughter, I wanted his wife to come through. Now maybe, again, I already spoiled pretty much everything, but maybe that was partly also because he realized that his daughter wasn't his biological daughter, and maybe that was anger at his wife. I mean, so what happened is he tries over and over using his DNA to contact her, and then eventually his wife, it looks like she's about to use the machine and then stops, but she leaves the swab in the machine. So he then uses that to locate the daughter, and it's like instant. It finds her instantly. That kind of plants the seed that his daughter is not his. Now they don't really go into that until a later confrontation with his wife, but maybe that's what happened. Maybe he was angry at her because he finds out that it's not actually his biological daughter, even though it's he is the father, that is his daughter, but it's not his biological daughter. So maybe the anger at his wife is what then causes him to kind of cut her out of this interaction. But it did feel very selfish. So he does eventually pull the daughter into the time, and she's only there for a little bit of time. She's only there for a limited amount of time. The fact that he didn't like let his wife experience that as well was a little off-putting to me. But again, I thought that this film was very good, so don't worry as much about that. And the last thing I did not love as much, and this I guess this is more of a neutral aspect, is the overall explanation for what happened. I thought it was clever. I thought it was interesting, but it also felt just a little bit weird to me. So the explanation for what is happening in this film is the ring kind of punches a hole through time to that individual, and it allows the person in the present to kind of talk to that person in the past. And so when they're talking to them in the film, they're not talking to a dead person, they're talking to a living person in the past. But the interesting twist, and I guess it was a clever twist, so I guess this was more neutral because I did want them to talk to dead people, but I thought this was kind of a clever twist as well. So what happens is when they're talking to that person, the machine itself also emits radiation, and it emits a little bit of radiation in the present, but it emits a lot of radiation in the past. So what happens is when they're talking to that person, they're also essentially poisoning them. And so the contacting of the presently dead person kind of causes that person in the past to die. And that then, pulls forward. So when the person in the present speaks to their loved one in the past, they're actually killing that person because they're radiating them. And so sometimes if someone is a little bit is sick and on their deathbed, they go quickly. But other times, let's say you have an obsessive father who is then trying to contact his daughter to figure out what happened over and over, that can cause that person to become very sick. Now, Sam disappeared because then Ryan pulled her through, through this like time portal essentially into the present. And so she was there for a limited amount of time, but then she was also very sick because he contacted her a few times. And so she died shortly after. So I thought, again, I guess this is kind of a neutral one. It's not actually something I didn't love. It's just I wasn't what I was expecting to happen. And so when they kind of brought this up, I was a little taken aback by it. But the more I think about it, it is a pretty clever way to explain this, and it is an interesting kind of twist at the end. I just kind of wish they were actually speaking to dead people. I guess I just was hoping for that. But overall, I think it's an interesting and smart indie film, so I definitely think you should check it out. The film is Repeat. It's available in theaters and on demand on November 19, 2021, so it's available now. So definitely check it out. You can go to theaters if it's playing locally. I think it's probably a small run, so it's probably not playing locally. But if you don't have it in theaters, you can watch it on demand. So thanks so much for watching. If you liked this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Makes sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you.